Hey guys, it's Muddy here from Muay Thai Interviews, and my next guest he runs his own gym in Sydney called PTJ Muay Thai. He runs his own promotions called Cyan to Sydney and Real Hero. He's refereed and he's judged fights. He's an integral part of not only Muay Thai in New South Wales but also the whole of Australia, and was my first ever trainer, and since being introduced to Muay Thai I've never looked back. I'm joined by Andy Parnham. How are you, mate?
I'm awesome, man. Thanks for that. It's a pretty big intro, man.
I like to give all my guests a bit of an intro,
Wicked.
Mate, let's get started, mate. What is PTJ short for, and what does it mean?
Funnily enough, I think a lot of people kind of try and put it down to like maybe Parnham Thai boxing gym, but I mucked up the J. But it actually stands for PTJ, which is an abbreviated version of my wife's family name.
Okay.
So yeah, and we just thought PTJ was pretty hard for people to pronounce when we were opening up the gym, and we thought that it broke down quite nicely into PTJ, and the rest is history.
Yeah, mate, it's a good name, and it's getting quite popular and among Australian Muay Thai, so definitely heading in the right direction, mate. Now, mate, everyone knows you as a trainer.
Cheers, man.
No worries. Everyone knows you as a trainer, as a promoter, as a gym owner, and all the work you do behind the scenes for Muay Thai. But I'm keen to know how you found Muay Thai, and what was it like fighting in Australia back in the days?
Yeah, good question, man. To be honest, we were lucky enough to have Foxtel. I think back when I was around 16 years old or something like that, and back then they used to have the Channel 7 stadium fights playing on Foxtel. Rob Cusack used to do I think it's Cusack, who's one of the top WBC Muay Thai guys at the moment. He was doing all the commentary, and man, we used to stay up and record that. And back on the BCR days, I think I've still got some BCR recordings of those shows, and man, they fought hard back then, and I just fell in love with that. And then one thing led to another, and I found a local gym and started training there. And I think within about 6 months, I might have even had my first fight. It would have had to have been kickboxing back then, and then decided to join in on a Thai tour.
Yeah.
And since then, I was just absolutely hooked for life. Love it, and I still do. 20 years later, actually, this year's my 20th anniversary. So there you go.
Awesome, dude. What was the name of your first gym?
I trained at a Taipan gym in Hurstville back in the day. It was one of the first Muay Thai only gyms, which was really good training back then. Fighting back then was pretty difficult because actually Muay Thai in New South Wales back then was illegal, I guess. So my first 3 fights back then were all under kickboxing rules.
Yep.
Funnily enough, on a J&I show, I think Nick Stone show as well. But then I was fortunate enough through my trainer to have guys like Joe Hilton, mate, an absolute legend of the sport, and the Demicolis, who were actually down in Victoria at the time, fly me up and down to have a couple of fights on those shows, which I was really I was really fortunate enough to have those fights, and those guys taking a gamble and flying me to have just kind of really little fights, but it meant a lot to be able to fight full Thai rules.
Demicoli, any relation to the ring announcer?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, Paul, John, yeah, man, absolutely.
Awesome, man, awesome. Now, you've also, when you were fighting, you spent some time in Koh Samui at the WMC gym in Lamai, where you were a sponsored fighter. Can you tell us how that happened, and what was it like back then?
That was just from going back and forth. Back then, we had a good relationship with Stefan, he was actually in the gym quite a lot, Stefan Fox, and funnily enough, Samui was a really different place back then. Even in Lamai, they didn't even have cement on the roads; it was all dirt, and it was a pretty tough place to train. It was good, it was fair, and they had a lot of strong Westerners coming through there back then as well, and there were a lot of fights to be had. So it was good fun.
Now, I want to pick your brains. Were there any difference training and fighting in Thailand back when you were doing it compared to today, apart from what you were just talking about, the geographical bit of it?
Yeah. Oh, look, to be honest, I think people are really blessed with what they've got today. The level of training and the standard of training and the facilities that they've got now is phenomenal. And I think back then it was a little bit rawer, I guess. But the training was still the same. Like, much, pads, running, hit, sparring, clinching, all that type of stuff. But, it was bare bones. There wasn't as much around. It's a little bit tougher that way in that respect. But I think on the whole these days, the level of training and the access and the ease that you have to be able to do that, it's much better. Like, even to get to a place like Samui back in the day, you'd sit on a train for 12 hours, an overnight train. It's a lot of fun, and then get the ferry over and all of that. It's not a Bangkok gym by any means back then, but it was still tough and it was still a lot of fun, and I loved absolutely every minute of it.
Yeah, awesome, man. Now, I heard a story when you were training at the WMC gym as a fighter twice a day, 6 days a week, and after you'd already trained twice in one day, you took a fight on a few hours' notice. Can you tell us a bit about that?
I think most of the guys who were training there back then would have pretty much done the same. But it was a bit of a shock. I'd trained in the morning and then kind of just getting into the final bit of your afternoon session, and then one of the trainers goes, you're fighting tonight. I was like, nah, man, I'm supposed to be fighting in a week and a half. He's like, no, man, you got to fight tonight. I was like, oh, okay. And I think Stefan wasn't around at the time, so I thought, whatever. If they say you fight, you fight. So I went, and it's supposed to be an easy enough fight, and then I ended up getting cut pretty bad. And I thought, beautiful, had a good win, happy days. And then Stefan came back the next day and lost it, because I was actually supposed to fight in Pattaya a week and a half later, and so he wasn't really happy, and I think he lost it, all the trainers, for making me fight. But anyway, I ended up having the fight about a week and a half later in Pattaya against an English guy, and that was a wicked trip as well. Actually, I think I took that trip with Kurt Finlayson at the time.
Oh yeah.
And fought that one, and we fought down in Pattaya, and we had an awesome time down there too, man. So it's definitely something that I've got good memories of that for sure.
Now, mate, as I've mentioned, you run your own couple of promotions. One of them I'm keen to talk about is Real Hero, and how that all came about. I remember that first show you put on when it was Australia versus Thailand, with Buakau as a team captain for Thailand, and I forget who the Australian captain was, but man, that was a phenomenal card. And who can forget the main event with Toby Smith versus Superbon? That was a complete bloodbath.
Yeah, man, that's like one of my epic Muay Thai memories and moments, I guess. The whole process, the build up to it, everything. I got thrown right in the deep end with that one. The team captain at the time was actually Lewis Regis.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
And the talks about that started really randomly. I think a few months before it, and I think Don Miller mentioned to me that there was some Thais fishing around, that they were going to put on a show, and I thought, no worries. And anyway, one of them contacted me. I didn't even know who it was. Lucky my Thai language skills were good enough to have a conversation. And then so I ended up catching up with the guys, and there's a couple of Thai businessmen still based in Sydney. I still work with the guys, they still help me out, and we caught up, and that's where the whole Real Hero piece came about. And they said that they had some Thais coming over and they wanted to match them, and they were looking for specific styles and all this type of stuff. It was actually really tricky to build up, and not only that, having to kind of figure out exactly what they wanted and how they wanted and what the budget was. It was pretty much a blue sky budget.
Wow.
So, just cut sick, and I think you can probably see by the way that first show went, it was definitely a blue sky budget, and it was epic. And we had a lot of fun. I think the fighters had a lot of fun. I think the trainers all had a lot of fun. And thankfully, it was the sponsors were there to try to put on a show like that. And I think for those who were there and witnessed it, and even see the videos of that fight, like for Toby Smith versus Superbon, who are now two, absolute superstars, can attest to how good that show was. It was good fun. But those guys now are still involved, and but because they're Thai businessmen, they've got a lot of other things on the go as well. So, and the amount of sponsorship that was involved in that first show, unfortunately, isn't there all the time. So, and now we just kind of scale it down a little bit and work with what we got.
Yeah, man. And that's what I was going to say. Now that you've still got the show going, and it isn't as big, do you reckon in the future we'll ever see a show as big as that again?
Oh man, I would love to see that. But it's all up to them in the end. Like, the sponsors are the ones providing the money for a production like that. The turnout was actually good. It was just the venue itself was just massive, so it didn't really look that big. But I don't know if Sydney's ready for something like that again. I'd say a state like Queensland or Victoria or even WA would be probably more suited to it, just from their attendance and their knowledge and their fan base for the actual sport itself.
Yeah,
it's much bigger. But mate, if they come up with another one, man, I'll be so stoked to be involved in it again. It's great.
I'll be stoked to watch it. Now, you also run a small local show called Siam to Sydney, which features not only New South Wales best fighters, but interstate matchups too. And you've also got an amateur undercard on those events. Can you tell us a bit about that, and how many times a year is that put on usually?
It's a funny one, that one, eh? It was kind of like a beast, which I really just put it on to have consistent little amateur fights, really. Like the first one was all padded, man, and me and Steve Ganane, when he lived in Sydney, he did a similar show, not so far away from us too, and we both had a blast doing those couple of shows. And then one thing led to another. I think the thing for me was that the guys who were fighting on that Sound to Sydney show as amateurs started pushing through, and because it was like a all Muay Thai show, and we kind of prided ourselves on it being like an afternoon event, almost like a country stadium show, I guess, and low key, kids running around everywhere. We wanted it so that it was more kid friendly without the pressure of being at night under the big lights and all that. We wanted to create our own kind of atmosphere around that. And then so it developed from being that to then having like one or two pro fights on to kind of help, local pros, whether they be from my gym or another gym, who probably there's opportunities there, but it is just nice to give them a chance to fight someone, and to showcase New South Wales Muay Thai, and then from that a few more, and we've had a couple of pretty cool little shows, man. And the venue's fantastic. Unfortunately, we don't have the booze in the current location where it is at the moment. The venue, it comes up real nice. It's got a mezzanine over on top of each other, and the fighters enjoy fighting there because I think from the feedback that I've got from a few of them, they feel quite relaxed. So because it's day and it's quite bright, and it makes them feel a little bit more comfortable, and they can see the staff and everything like that. So I'm stoked for it is, man. And we do all Muay Thai bouts, top to bottom. I think we've done 3 shows in a row where it's been elbows from the first fight to the last fight. So I'm stoked with that too, man. And to be able to give the New South Wales guys who are constantly fighting in a state the opportunity to fight at home. I love being able to do that, man. So if I can continue to do that, fantastic. And if people can continue to support me, then happy days,
Mate, I remember just going back a little bit when you said it started from the padded amateur event, and you and Steve Gwyneen started that. Do you know where I'm going with this? For those listening that don't know what I'm talking about, it would have been back in 2013, I think it was, maybe. And Andy had 8 guys from his gym fighting on the padded amateur. It was an amateur day Steve Gwyneen put on. I think it was up at North Ryde or somewhere like that.
That was at Concord, yeah.
That's right. And Andy had 8 fighters fighting on the card, and he said if all 8 fighters win their fights, he'll drink beer from the cup of whoever wins the last fight. And Sebastian Holmes, he was the main event, and he won. And it was 7 from 7 up until that point, and no pressure, Seb, but Seb pulled it off, and it was 8 from 8. And there's a video going around somewhere on YouTube, I've seen it, where
it's up there, man. I still watch that video.
Andy honoured his promise.
That was an epic day, man, and Steve put on a good little show down there. I really enjoyed those days, and I had 8 on the day, and that was too many, and it's still unless I'm really prepared, I don't like to have that many on a show. But we got to that 7, and Seb was going out there, and I was like, I really, man, no pressure, but we're kind of really not looking forward to ripping that cup out there and having it. But anyway, it's up on YouTube now, man, and the rest is history. But that was a really, really cool day. And
that's just a testament to your knowledge and the way you train your fighters, mate.
Thanks, Brent.
Also, I remember last year when we were having a chat, and you told me you did something like 4 shows in 5 weeks towards the end of last year. I imagine you would have been running around like a headless chicken, and I bet you're not in a hurry to do that again anytime soon. Can you tell us about that and why you decided to take that on?
I didn't really decide to take that on. I kind of just got put in my fucking plate, and I don't think I'll ever do anything like that again. I don't think my wife will ever let me do anything like that again, man. But it started with a date. I had a Sydney date, and I was happy with that. And then I got placed with a Real Hero date as well, which happened to be a couple of weeks before that. And I also had a development day on either side of that, which we'd already planned between myself at my gym and then another one before that. So that was just an absolute mental month, and thankfully I'd had a holiday planned straight after that, man. So by the time that last one was done, buddy, I was absolutely toast. I think my missus wanted to kill me. I think the kids, and I think the Combat Sports Authority were really just happy to see me go after that one, because the amount of emails we got to go through to get all the fighters approved and all that type of stuff too, man, it's pretty nuts. So never again. Hand on my heart, man, fucking not doing that shit again.
Oh, mate. Now, one thing I wanted to talk to you about is you have the best 65 kilogram fighter in all of Australia, and some may even argue in the world at your gym as a trainer / fighter in Sing Payak. He is an ex-Channel 7 Stadium champion and is recently coming off winning the 8-man tournament on Rebellion at the end of last year. Can you talk about how you got him to your gym and what it means to have him not only as a trainer, but what it's done for Australian Muay Thai as well?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Just cut out before. Mate, the guys are free, to be perfectly honest. Everything about him, and I'm absolutely blessed to have him in the gym. Hasn't always been, smooth sailing. Like when we had him, when he first moved with us, it was actually a part of the whole Real Hero, the first big show. He fought on that, and he'd actually won a scholarship through the university to stay with us, and we were kind of like a homestay for him for the first year. And really shy, couldn't speak much English at all, and it was fortunate that the language barrier wasn't a big deal for us outside of the gym, but I had to handhold him through it all. And I remember him, we were told that he was able to at least take a class or whatever, and the poor guy, man, we put him in a class and he couldn't even speak a word of English. Ask him about it now and he'll tell you, man, I think he was more nervous for that than any of his stadium fights ever, man. He was just standing there in front of like 20 Aussies just going, what am I supposed to do here? But since then he's just grown into this, this character that we can't kind of shut up sometimes. And he turned into a real gentleman, a good top bloke as a man. Now we watch him kind of go from being a kind of a almost like a teenager when he first came to this, guy who he is today. He's like my brother, and we treat him that way as well. But he, as an athlete, is phenomenal. Like, he's blessed with, not everything about fighting is your ability and all of that, but genetics is another big thing, and his size. So, he's quite tall, but not overly tall. So, you know what I mean? It's like well proportionate for that weight. He fought in Thailand at 60 to 61 originally. Right now, he's filled out. He's got that man muscle, I guess. But he can fight from around 63 to 65.
Yeah.
65 suits well. He's only really cutting 2 to get to that. And like now, because he's doing so well in the gym, he's just got PTs coming out left, right, and centre. So, funnily enough, we had a fight in New Zealand not long before the 8-man, and he wouldn't have even. I don't even think we really hit any pads for that, because the amount of PTs he was doing throughout the day, man, it was just nuts. So he was happy to do the PTs, and I was watching him, and we just made sure he was in a good shape to do that. The 8-man was a different story. Like, he's coming up against guys who are training full time, and a guy like Sama Pet, who's like, he's a scary individual, man. And
he's a big boy.
We knew going into that. We've seen him, heard about him, and knew that he'd come through the Channel 7 circuit as well, and knew his style. He's a big lefty, and up his hit. He's a scary dude. Singh lost to him by a cut on a Siamba Sydney show. And then the Aussies too, man, like Lloyd and Alex and that, we knew that they were just going to throw it absolutely on the line there, everything on the line there. So, but money's also money for a guy like Singh, so he didn't want to sacrifice too much of his PT's money and everything like that. So we come to an agreement that a couple of weeks out he had to really knuckle down, and in Thailand, I guess for the big fights, they'll talk about a 21-day prep, kind of a 14-day prep. Yeah. We scrapped the running because he's already doing a lot of cardio and he's doing his PTs and all that type of stuff. So we really kind of slotted in with the Aussie fighter schedule in the last couple of weeks, man. So it's pretty hard to get him to take away those PTs and rest, man. He's a real hard worker, but we're blessed to have him, and I really hope we can keep working with him as long as we got the gym, really. Or, I mean, he'll probably go his own way, but that's the way it goes.
Because, and also I think in saying that, Australian Muay Thai has come a real long way, because I remember when he first come over to Australia, and there probably weren't too many people in Australia that were good enough to stand with him, but give it a few years later, so many people have improved, and as you said, like, Lloyd, Alexi, all the guys, even Matty Smith was in it, I think, and like, people are actually good enough to actually fight him now, whereas when he first came, it was like, he probably really couldn't find anyone in Australia unless it was a Thai or maybe Tomahawk back in the days,
Yeah, absolutely, man. And it's testament to what the Aussie guys are doing, and you look at guys like Chad and even like the young fella Lockie who's over there at the moment. There's guys who are just, oh man, it's really exciting seeing what the Aussies are doing at the moment, and I really hope that progression, continues, and because it's only going to be good for us,
I'll tell you what, I'd like to see him fight someone like Roy Wills, who just pushes forward and just kicks and punches and doesn't give him any space at all. I reckon I reckon Roy versus anyone would be a good fight, really, to be honest.
Man, love that guy. Awesome.
Now, mate, you've recently just acquired another fighter from Thailand who has come to fight and be a trainer at PTJ. Can you tell everyone about the story of how he came to Australia? And from what I've seen, he's quite a good freestyle pad holder.
Yeah, Palang Chok, his name is. He's actually booked to fight Jay Tonkin on our next Siamba Sydney. He's a part of the whole Muay Thai College scholarship program as well. He's a real character. He's a big boy, like for a Thai. He's it's around 70 kilos. But funny story about him. His original visa got declined for whatever reason. They're mucking around with the whole visas at the moment, and it's making it a bit tougher on everybody. But his first visa got declined, and part of his scholarship is that they will cover the first visa application, and if they fail, then bad luck really, or if you want to reapply, you have to foot it yourself. And hats off to the guy. Like, he actually funded the second application himself.
So his first application failed, did it?
The first one failed,
Yep.
and then the second one he funded it himself, and because he was just so keen to get out here, and then he did it. And I'll never forget. I've got a screenshot of his first post when he got the visa approved, and it was actually it was pretty touching, man. Like, it was something on the lines of, I've been waiting my whole life for the opportunity such as this, and I thank everybody for giving me this opportunity. And I showed it to Art, my wife, and it was just so cool to see someone so appreciative of the opportunities that they've been given, because not everybody, we're all the same. We don't all appreciate what we've got, and to see someone, he's 23, I think, years old, being so appreciated was really, really cool. And he's only been out here for 2 months. He's a really good freestyle paddler. Like, he just catches stuff left, right, and centre, which is great for the experienced guys, because he was holding all the pads at the uni as well. And I really can't wait to see where the guy goes. It's going to be cool. Looking forward to it. So first 2 fights are on the way. First one on ours. Second one, George Mann on Epic.
Yep.
I really hope I'm supposed to. It's out public. Yeah, it is. Yep, sweet.
Yep, that's public.
Happy days.
Yep.
So, really looking forward to that too, man. It's going to be a sick fight.
Yeah, that was a good story. When you told me that, I was like, yeah, make sure you say that. I really like that. Love a good filmy, good story, you know?
Man, so cool, man. I'll see if I can find that screenshot for you.
Thanks, dude. Now, mate, one thing I wanted to bring up very briefly was when I first started training at your gym, I was as green as they come. And I remember training alongside one of the first fighters who ever fought for PTJ in Mark Sharky Fowler, who passed away a while ago now. But since then, I've trained at quite a few different gyms and alongside a lot of different people, and I can honestly say that I've never known someone to train as frequent and as hard as Mark trained on a consistent basis, whether he had an upcoming fight or he was just training to stay in shape. That guy would go running and do kettlebell workouts in his lunch break at work. God bless him.
Absolute freak, man. There'll only be one Sharky, mate. Bless him. And man, if he was here today, I really hope that he'd be with us as well. And I know he's up there kind of doing his thing up there too, man. But, through his legacy, I guess, is why I kind of put a lot of pressure on myself to ensure that our guys are as fit as possible and putting it in as much as possible. And whether or not they've met him or not, we're kind of through a kind of a second, I guess a third generation of fighters now who would never have met him before. But, through him and through me, I hope that we can continue to carry that on in the culture at the gym as well. So that one's for you, Marky.
Awesome, brother. Awesome. Now, mate, as I mentioned at the start, you've also done refereeing and judging. I'm keen to get your opinion on how do you think Australia compares in terms of reffing and judging to the rest of the world. What do you think we do well, and what do you think still needs a bit of improving?
So it's kind of a touchy subject, I guess. Hey, I feel in my own backyard, I think we're doing well, and we're really moving along well, and the consistency is there because of guys like Elias and Trevor and myself, and now seeing as well, really knuckling down and trying to develop these guys from the bottom up. I've always been of the opinion that referees and judges should be like fighters. Fighters train, 6 days a week, put in the hours so that they can perform in front of us.
Yep.
I really believe that officials should be the same, and they should be putting in the hours, watching the fights, asking the questions. And I think through things like our development day program and the way that we train our officials in our state anyway is starting to shine through. I think in other states in Australia, it's coming along nice as well. I think it's as good as the people who are behind it and pushing it through. Whatever the rule set, when I say rule set, I mean what they're specifically looking for.
Yeah.
I think it is how you've been trained, and it reflects that. So if you've been trained to look for aggression and stuff, that's the way all the judges are going to be, and people need to be aware of that. It's when it becomes inconsistent, which is kind of a pet hate of mine, and that's the tricky one. One judge is kind of looking for like Thai style stuff, whereas the other one's looking for aggression, and the other one's who knows what he's looking at, and you get these scores that'll just be like up and down the whole way. I think that's when it starts to really grind my gears. But I think compared to a world level, I think we're all right. We just need a lot of work, man. And as long as people are willing to put in the work and put in the hard yards, we can go there. But if everyone sits back and complains about it, well, what's the solution, right? And how are the guys going to get better? It's easy enough to sit back and say, oh, well, they should be doing this. Well, I really hope, and I genuinely hope that other people are going to get behind the officials scene, I guess, to try and develop these guys rather than bring them down, because it's fuck, man. As much as I enjoy refereeing, because I just enjoy being in the ring, it's pretty hard, man. And when you got people out there slagging you off all the time, they're not getting paid. They're doing it. Well, they're getting paid a little bit, but they're doing it out of passion, man. And without them, to be quite honest, we're fucked. So, help them out.
Good answer, mate. Good answer. Now, mate, 2018 no doubt is another busy year for you. In terms of PTJ Gym, what have you got planned?
Good question. As a gym, we are now really focusing on trying to get out to the general public, man. To be quite honest, our fighters are always going to be our fighters, and I do my very best to look after them and treat them the way that they need to be treated, because it's a very different vibe for a fighter. But on the whole, we've seen a massive shift in terms of membership in our gym, from being a real blokey bloke type of place, and then because of the fighters, and we've earned that reputation of being a fight gym, but now we're kind of branching out a little bit, and we've got almost, I think we're getting close to a 60-40 or female to men ratio, which I'm absolutely stoked about, and it's bringing a new dynamic to the gym, and I hope that continues.
Mate, sorry guys, we just cut out there for a second, but Andy was just telling us about how his gym's now probably overtaken with females, and the ratio is now about 60-40, Andy?
So I wouldn't say overtaken, but we've got about 60-40, which I mean by men to women, so I'm stoked with that, to be quite honest. It brings a new dynamic to the gym, and it's been really good, and that's kind of a credit to not just the male trainers, but also the female trainers and the fighters who are there setting good role models for the ladies coming through.
Well, mate, to give listeners an idea of how far your gym has come, I think I remember when I started would have been, I think probably 2011, started 2011, maybe 2010, and when the gym just opened, sometimes we only had 4 in a class, and now from what I'm hearing is people actually need to book their place on an app that you guys use, because you're always at full capacity, so you need to make sure that people book their spots, otherwise they're going to miss out.
It's getting like that, man. Actually, it's been a pretty crazy start to the year, so I hope it continues that way, and I'm just stoked that people are enjoying what we're doing, to be quite honest. So must be doing something right.
Well, mate, it seems to only get stronger from not even year to year, from month to month. So that's a I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but is credit. It's a credit to you and your wife.
And the boys, everyone helping out. So it's good, man.
Yeah, the boys.
I was gonna say it, but you beat me to it, but yeah.
Yeah, the boys. Now, mate, what have you got planned this year for Real Hero and Siam to Sydney promotions?
So 3 Siam to Sydney and 2 Real Hero, the current plans. got the next one in a couple of weeks, which I'm really, or not a couple of weeks, 5 weeks, which I'm really excited about. We had a bit of a venue change, but anyway, we're back to the same old venue. Our main event, can't wait to see Palang Chok, his first appearance over here, and I'm stoked to have Jay on the show again, Sydney Sider. He's always keen, game, really he's an exciting guy to watch, so I can't wait for that, man. It's going to be awesome. And we've also got a couple of really cool, we've got a state title, Hugh O'Donnell, and Dan from Phoenix. Those boys are really coming along, leaps and bounds, and Hugh's defending his belt. Funnily enough, those two drew each other at the MTA Nationals the other weekend, and Dan came up with a win, man. So this is going to be a rematch, and it's going to be sick. So looking out for the undercard as well. It's going to be cool.
Awesome, brother. And mate, if people want more info about PTJ and timetable for classes, where can they find that?
All on the website, man. www.ptjmuaythai.com.au, and through Facebook and Instagram, that type of stuff too. Same with the shows, man. It's easy to get a hold of us, and if you get stuck, hit up Muay Thai Interviews.
Thanks, mate. And lastly, mate, just before I let you go, is there anyone you wish to thank or give a shout out to?
Heaps, man. But I guess the biggest group of people that I would really want to give a shout out to start with would be the pioneers of our sport, the people, the old school guys and girls who kind of put in the hard yards and did the exploring and the adventuring and had the successes and had the failures that we're all, we kind of take for granted, myself included. So massive shout out to the pioneers, because without them we wouldn't have what we do. Much love, I guess I'd say. But also, obviously, my wife and all my crew out at PTJ and who help out with the shows. But, Sai, Don Miller, even Blair out in WA, I've had I've got so much respect for those guys, and it's really nice to have guys like that in your corner to kind of give you advice and man, they're just top blokes, so it's awesome to have those guys around all the time too. So much love to them, and to you guys who Muay Thai Interviews and everybody who gives us a platform to be able to kind of talk about stuff like this, man. I really appreciate being given that platform too, man. So thank you.
Well, mate, I appreciate it when people give me their time. I know people are busy and training and fighting and family and work and everything, so mate, thank you for taking the time out to have a chat with me, and I'll either see you in Sydney or I'll see you in Chiang Mai, one or the other. Same but different.
Hell yeah, man. I can't wait, bro. Good to speak to you, buddy.
Andy, thanks for your time, mate. It's been a pleasure.
Likewise, man.
Cheers, mate.